Ollie, welcome back to the War Room. It's been a little while, I feel like, since you've been here. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. You guys, caught me in a casual dress day, so I'm, wearing my fishing cap and hoodie. I'm just chilling at the office, but no, it's good to be back. Has been a very kind of busy period. I'm sure, like most people noticed, we just kind of finished a big fundraising round targeted to getting the game to mobile. That's been a huge shakeup, internally in the company. A lot of kind of new projects, new areas to look into. And also just kind of we have to reassess a lot of our current plans and look at how does that impact our timeline towards mobile. I know mobile is a huge thing that the community is kind of calling for, so we're really looking into how we can deliver on that as fast as possible as well.
That's awesome to hear that you're taking the feedback into account from the community because I'm sure getting, an additional round of funding also requires you to, like you were saying, kind of reallocate some of those priorities and figure out, hey, what's most important for the game, for the experience, for the current community, what's most important to attract new players. I'm sure there's a lot going on kind of behind the scenes right now that we don't actually see.
Oh yeah, I mean this is an exciting time for cards. It's a not just from a tournament perspective, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But like just from the game perspective, this is forcing us to take a good hard look at like a lot of different systems in the game as well. You got to think about like is is opening packs, building decks, doing this, is it all good enough to go out on mobile? And in a lot of cases the answer is going to be no, it's not ready to go out on mobile yet, because the mobile version often has to be way more polished. You have less screen real estate to play around with, so it kind of features a lot of work that we have to do to get there. But it's a very exciting time because as most people kind of probably know, the card game market is now just primarily mobile, and we haven't been there. So it's a kind of a new birth for the game as well. So we're extremely excited, working towards that goal.
Right, and you said it before that the current community wants mobile. They want to be able to, pick up and play a game of cards, whether they're on the bus or
Yeah,
just, yeah, putting their
on the
feet up in the
toilet.
living room, on the toilet. I mean, I
My
think
personal
that's
one.
I think that's naturally where most people go. But actually, not even just the current community, but new players as well. They're sitting on the can and they pull up their phone and they go, "What am I going to do?" And they flip through and they go, "This is new. I like World War II. Let me check this out." Do you think that not only because the current community is excited about it, but that the new player experience has to be really refined because you're going to have more people picking up the game, trying it? And we know that on mobile, you don't have a lot of time to really impact somebody. They might pick it up, play it for 5 minutes, never open the app again. So, does that kind of impact your way of thinking?
I mean, definitely. We are working on a big, massive overhaul of the new player experience right now. I mean, you guys just caught me at the end of user testing that. We had volunteers coming into the office playing through the new player experience for the first time, never played cards before. We're sitting there looking at, their facial expressions, what they're thinking, what buttons they're clicking, how they're doing in the different scenarios, and we're all trying to do that to make sure that we hit that quality bar for the new player experience. And it's not just for mobile. I mean, we want everybody to get a good start in cards, and it's been a while since we've had time to really go dig into the new player experience, so that's kind of remained a little bit static as we've released new expansions. But alongside this, they're going to be completely kind of updated starter decks and different ways of acquiring them. And we're hoping that like through that system players will get both kind of a faster start in cards, but also just be able to learn the game a little bit quicker and in a little bit more of an organized manner. So you kind of hit the nail on the head there. All of this stuff has to be perfect, and we're staring down the barrel of a pretty intense period of work of making it there. But the entire team is motivated and passionate about where we're going. We're now fully funded for that journey, so it's just a matter of executing on it, and that's what we're going to be doing. But we're not going to be slipping on the other stuff. We're still going to try and find a way to introduce some new cards, and some maybe different ways of acquiring them. Um, so a lot of kind of interesting stuff, and I think from a player perspective, this period should be exciting, even though it signals change, and not everybody loves change. Um, but like it should feel exciting for the players because the way we always think about things when we are redesigning them is player value first. So
Mhm. Yeah, and that's a huge aspect too. Like you were talking about again, the current community and how they've been, patient. You've been talking about mobile for a long time, but more goes
Yeah.
into it than just taking the game and dropping it on your phone. There's UI, experience to think about. There's the new player experience, and then you want that, to your point, to have value and to be exciting for the current generation of players as well. You want them to move to mobile and not just be happy that they can play on the toilet, but they can also have a fantastic experience and be really excited about something new. So I think you guys have your head in the right place, and I'm really excited to see how that work behind the scenes continues. But we are in a very exciting time, not just behind the scenes, but in front of, I mean, the camera, the game,
Yeah.
Twitch.
Yeah.
You're all over the place talking about the World Championships. They're coming up. You just recently had the qualifiers, the in-game qualifiers wrap up. How did that go, and what's kind of coming up next? What's that next step?
The in-game qualifiers actually went really well. We had around 2,000 players that participated in the qualifiers, and that's a huge success for us.
Mhm.
This was also kind of the first time since 2019 that we did these open in-game kind of ladder-based qualification. And if we were looking back then, of course, the game was still in early access, but like back then the number was maybe 300 something. Now we're looking at 2,000 people that were willing to go in there and compete, and that just makes me super excited. And we're seeing a lot of familiar names. We're seeing pretty much all of our tournament veterans and kind of staples of the competitive scene having made it through. And of course, those tend to be the ones you watch and tend to be kind of the favorites coming into the knockout stage. But as we've seen in just both OCCs and Opens recently, you can never underestimate the little guy, right? We're seeing players come in maybe with 3 or 4 thousand games under their belt, having played the game for maybe 6 months. Scoring high in the OCC, bringing kind of a slightly different flavor to the way they play their decks, the way they push tempo, and cards kind of still being such a young game means that there are still avenues of innovation to be had. So I'm super excited to see what we get here. I'm also super excited to just see the kind of the spirit of the international competition that always comes out in the World Championship. There is this kind of sense of national pride when there's a World Championship on the line. So I'm kind of, yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what happens.
Awesome. So, you kind of mentioned it. We had talked about it during the experts panel. I think it was a couple weeks ago at this point, but how it's exactly like what you were saying. This kind of a tournament meta that is established by the players that play regularly in the OCCs, regularly in the Opens, and that's a pool of, let's say, a couple hundred players. But all of a sudden, you add a couple thousand players who maybe have a ton of games under their belt, but just never really got into that tournament scene outside of the game because they spend most of their time in the client, and they bring a whole new kind of twist to things. So, in part by making this event, this qualifier, so frictionless, it's you've got a great opportunity to get more players involved in the World Championships. Do you think some of that will trickle over to some of the events like the Open, where maybe a player who hadn't really participated in tournaments before goes, "Oh, wait a second, I can actually do more of this and play for some good cash as well."
I think definitely. I think I think we always see new players kind of get engaged with the competitive scene when you lower the barrier of entry and you make it
Mhm.
so easy to get into that experience. Playing cards when there's something on the line is just it's just the next level. So yeah, I would say definitely we should see some trickle over. I'm also just happy because the way we've kind of done these things before is we've relied a lot on like qualifications through the Officer Club Championship. So
Right.
kind of the ladder grind monthly has been a big barrier of entry for competition in the World Championship last year, and being able to remove that now and make this something that is accessible by more players, um, that is just also the spirit of the World Championship, right? Like, you know, if you if you are a 2 week old player and you make it through to the top 128, that's just really cool, right? Like that's an experience that we want you to be able to have. We don't want you to have to maybe jump through all the hoops of
Yeah.
being in the top 20 or something to qualify. So I'm kind of happy with how we've both managed to introduce tournaments and competitive cards to new players through this, but just also with the competitive integrity of this, because kind of through the 6 sessions, playing those 3 sessions, the way this allows you to kind of tackle variance. It really allows you to push the best players to the top,
Oh,
even with kind of a certain randomness in the matchmaking. So yeah, overall we're super happy about it, and we definitely hope that the players enjoyed it. And then we're going to be delivering the card back soon for everybody that successfully completed a qualifier, and that should be fun seeing everybody flex their world championship card backs out there. So yeah, overall really happy.
And I love the direction that you're taking with this because I mean, I could definitely imagine there being players who look at the OCC and look at some of those player profiles and look at somebody like Darkness who's been playing the game forever, playing a ton of ladder games and saying to themselves, well, I'm never going to get to that point. I don't have time to play that many games or I'm not interested in playing that many games, but they're still a good player. So to your point, you get them in game, you get them into a smaller environment where they can still perform. You take some of that variance out because you give them a couple chances, and all of a sudden you get a new kind of batch of top level players. And when you're talking about the world championships, you want the best of the best, whether that's somebody who can play hundreds of games on ladder or somebody who is just a casual player and decides, hey, this is a big deal now. This is the world championships. I'm going to turn it on.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm also just I'm super excited, and I hope we kind of get all of the top four from last year's World Championship returning,
Hmm.
because that's been kind of a big thing as well. Is because kind of between World Championships, sometimes you see players maybe stop playing,
Hmm.
right? Like, and Fendrid is a great example of that, right? Between the 2019 and the 2020 World Championship, he kind of stopped playing for a little bit, but then he came back, a few months before the championship. He really went hard on the grind, and he made it really far in the top four there, and made it into a cash placement through the knockout stage. So it also shows that you can kind of bring back those legends of the game, all the way from back in early access, and they haven't missed a beat. They still know how to play around the front line. They still know how to put pressure on their opponent. They know how the core archetypes of decks work, and what they're lacking, they're able to make that up pretty quickly by just engaging with the community. So um, I'm super pumped, and I think this is also what esports or competitive should be about, right? It should be about the journey. It should be about the participation, and not just for the ones that win. It should be fun to participate. You should kind of have a reason that, like, oh, this Saturday I'm gonna go play a cards tournament, right? And you don't have to put that on like a pedestal for yourself. It's like, I'm gonna go win a cards tournament, and if I don't win, it's gonna suck, right? Like, just sit down, play some cards. You're gonna get some challenging matches. You're going to learn from it. You're going to be able to reflect on kind of your performance, your deck building stuff through it, and that to me is the fun, and that's really kind of the part of the process that I want to emphasize, and that's why we do so many opens, right? And that's why we do two qualifiers in the opens as well, to give you a double the chance. It's just to give you more tournament games to play, not more tournaments to win, because there's only one winner each time, right? So we can make 100 tournaments, but we'll only make 100 people happy if we're just making it for the winner. But if it's fun to play, we're making everybody happy. So
And that gets people engaged in that esports scene. So, they have their experience of playing through it, but then they also get their experience of watching it. You said it yourself, having somebody from beta or early access come back, you've got that fan favorite all of a sudden that people want to watch and they want to see, succeed. So not only do they get involved on the hands-on playing aspect, but you also then create a nice viewing experience for that player who
yeah.
says, oh, I remember this person, I remember that player, or this player is my favorite, or this player beat me in the qualifier. I want to see them go far because I want to say I lost to the number one player in the world.
Exactly, and I think that's a really fun one, right? Um, when playing on ladder, like, the ranks will always separate you to some extent, but, like, playing in the qualifiers, you could basically play anyone, right? So you could be playing some of the top players there, and sure, you might get crushed, but it's still an experience. If I'm facing Lionel Messi in football, it'd be a lot of fun. He would absolutely crush me, right? But I would probably enjoy the experience. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think you're correct there, and this is what it's all about, and it should be friendly competition. I'm super happy to see, like, players are now pouring into our Discord server, confirming their participation for the group, for the knockout stage, and for the groups there. And the conversation is really friendly. People are sharing deck lists. They're talking about the different strategies. They're talking about what people are likely to bring, and that to me is like why this is fun, right? Just, it gives you an added layer of engagement with the game. And I always feel really honored when players, choose to spend their time within the Cards ecosystem, and that can be like sitting in the World Championship Discord discussing decks. To me, that's like, super valuable that you're giving our community and our environment your time like that, right? Like, I really appreciate that. So super happy to see all these players start pouring in, and I can't wait for the action.
And that's something I've actually noticed in cards and the cards community that I haven't seen very often in other games is really that aspect of being very forthcoming. I mean, I think it was for an open that some of the players who qualify were in the Discord saying, "Hey, anybody want to do some scrimmaging? I want to practice a
Yeah.
deck. I want to do this. I want to do that." And like you're going head to head with this person in a week, but you want to go out of your way, help them out, make yourself better. It's just a really cool community. And like you said, if they're coming in there and they're spending their time, all the better.
Yep.
So, all right, we've got the qualifiers happened in game. Now we have 128 players going on to this knockout stage. Walk me through it. What's this all going to be about?
So the knockout stage is in two parts. First is a round robin stage, where we're going to be drawing into 16 different groups. Now, we expect that some players will either have conflicts with the weekends or something like that. So we might not get all 128 players competing, but we'll draw in as even groups as we can, given the players that are able to participate. Um, Out of those groups, they will play a single round robin. Each series will be a best out of three. There will be no bans during this period, so they're going to have one free deck to basically flex around with. So that should be pretty interesting. And once you've finished your round robin, the top two players from each group will advance into a 32 person double elimination bracket. We'll then play that double elimination bracket until there are four players remaining, and those four will be your grand finalists that are coming to Iceland as long as COVID allows. We're like 99% sure, but you never know if there's like all of a sudden a spike in cases. Or if there's like a huge issue with bringing players from a particular country or getting
Mhm.
them back home, we might have to make some changes. But as the plan stands, those are the four players that are going to be making it into Iceland. And we're going to be broadcasting from the knockout stage all four series that decide whether or not that player advances over into the grand finals. And I think those are the series that nobody would want to miss, because those are some of the highest stakes card series you're ever going to see, because the player that gets through those guarantees themselves at least fourth, which is $1,000, plus the trip to Iceland, plus of course the chance to win the $5,000 grand prize. So there's a lot on the line during those matches, and I'm, out of the entirety of the tournament, those are the matches that I'm kind of most excited about, because this is truly like the make or break thing. There's a once in a lifetime experience behind this best out of five. One of us is going to get it, the other one won't, and I think that's kind of cool to watch.
I mean, I think to your point, it's very rare that there is that much on the line in any type of event. And so that's the stream we're talking about on the 31st of
31st, yeah.
October, correct? And so that's going to be for all the marbles. That's going to get your final four. They're going theoretically, fingers crossed, live in Iceland for the top four. We haven't seen really much live and definitely not live cards in a long time.
Yeah.
What's that event going to look like, feel like? Do you have any expectations set, anything specific you maybe want to tease or highlight of what that's going to look like when we finally are able to get some live cards, in person live cards action going on?
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna be using our bunker um, to play it. So it's a very thematic play environment. You're sitting on a literal table from 1940, surrounded by concrete walls and a blinking alarm light and just props. We're also going to be adding a smoke machine, so the players are going to get that vibe. Um, so that should be a really fun experience, and it should be a fun thing for us to see the players in that setting. I also think like the more we see the players in their setting, the more we understand like how much thought and intricacy actually goes into the tournament play. When you're just looking at a static picture of someone, it's really easy to just picture him just kind of laying back in their chair just doing something, right? But like that person is probably just like, okay, okay, what am I doing, what am I doing? I have my notebook, I'm taking notes. And we get to see all that when it's live, so it's a lot of fun. Then we are also kind of working to get the casting team over to Iceland so we can have that kind of in-person anchor for the show. And that's the first time that we would ever be doing that. So I am super excited for the potential of that and how that will kind of elevate the entire show and experience. Then the last thing that we're doing, which is also something we've never done before, is we really want, again, if COVID allows, to offer kind of on-site um, viewers, right? So
Mhm.
we want to allow people to be in the room when the World Championship happens. It's very likely that it's going to be a very limited number of people, but the people that are going to be here in Iceland either are Icelandic players or people from all over the world that are interested in coming in Iceland around the first weekend of December will be able to reserve a free ticket to attend in person. So I'm thinking this is a pretty cool thing, right? I mean, grab a trip to Iceland, attend the Cards World Championship, meet the 1939 games team, hike a mountain, dip in a hot spring. Pretty cool.
There is no shortage of things to do in Iceland, even in December. So I think that'd be a pretty nifty trip. But like thinking again about the viewing experience, you were saying before, Ollie, you don't just have that static picture, or even sometimes you get like a webcam and they're just kind of a bobbling head. But
Hmm.
if you're a viewer and like you said, you see them focus, you see them taking notes, you start to again develop those favorites, those players you want to see pull through. And I think that when you're watching esports, you can really attach yourself to somebody and want to see them win it all. Like that's when you start getting excited about it, and that's what drives people to the game and to that experience. Plus, it's not esports if you don't have a smoke machine. I'm fairly certain it is an absolute
Smoke
requirement.
machine. Um, we don't have lasers though,
Ah,
but maybe we can get some like fire cannons or something.
I
We
mean,
have also been talking about like, and this is something that we've never actually done, right? But like we have theorized that we could kind of layer the bunker with, material at the top and then sprinkle like cement dust and stuff and then shake it randomly like the bunker's actually being bombed and it kind of falls down. But then we have so many like technical components that are in the area that it's been kind of difficult. But we'll definitely be playing around with stuff like that. And I think another huge thing that you get when you get the players here in person is that we get to know them a whole lot better. And that's something that I really missed, even though we did it kind of a little bit remotely around the 2020 World Championship. I really missed that from the 2019 Championship. Is that after every game we had an interview with a winner, an interview with a loser. um, you know we had a player profile, like a video recorded interview with each player where everybody got to know them, and not just know
yeah,
them from the cards perspective but know them as individuals, because that's what's so cool, right? Like these aren't just a bunch of robots playing cards. These are people that come from different situations, that have different lives, that have come from different cultures, but we're all kind of united by this game, cards. And that's what was so beautiful in the 2019 World Championship. Is just as soon as everybody walked into that room, we were all friends because
yeah.
of cards, right? So yeah, super exciting.
It's a great experience when you can take somebody from halfway across the world and then you do an interview with them and you realize, hey, they're not that different from me. You all have that common bond and you all come together for it. So having everybody in the same spot when that comes to casters and players and the developers and everybody coming together, it makes for an amazing experience. Going to make for an amazing show as well. I am excited to see how it all plays out. And I don't want to jump too far ahead because, there's still a lot of cards to be played this year. But Cards just got a nice feature in Esports Insider. You're already looking forward to 2022. What's any kind of teasers for what that's going to look like?
Yeah, I mean 2022, we're looking to kind of have that as our first full competitive season, right? Like where we lock everything down ahead of time. And what we plan to go into 2022 with is, we're looking at three primary tracks. One is the Officer Club Championship. Those will remain. We might make some slight format changes. We either might look at, making them bigger, or we might look at changing up the prize pool, changing up the prize distribution, possibly making other changes. Then we're going to have the Cards Opens. The OCs are going to be monthly. Cards opens are going to be bi-monthly, so every 2 months. But the prize pool there will be buffed up a little bit. So we're kind of trying to keep the prize pool similarly distributed throughout the year. Um, and then lastly, our kind of our big events, and that is the World Championship, of course. But we're also looking at potentially adding in a kind of mid-season championship event over the summer months. And because we were talking so much about mobile, this is also one of the reasons why I'm so excited about mobile, because with mobile, you can make really, really fun in-person events where people don't have to bring their computers, right?
Mhm.
So we could actually, fly to mainland Europe and meet thousands of our players, and everybody that has a smartphone can enter the tournament. So, the possibilities that open up there are extremely exciting to me. And whether or not we are able to do something like the mid-season championship through a mobile client or not will yet to be seen. But something that at least gives us that kind of peak in the middle of the year before we go on summer vacation. So we just get that, cards fix that we need for those dry summer months ahead.
But obviously, COVID has really put a kind of a dash to the plans of doing live or in person events, and cards kind of got released right at the cusp of COVID becoming a thing. But there are so many opportunities to do LAN events, do in person events, and just get the community more engaged and more involved. And I think that would be absolutely awesome from an esports perspective. I still nothing beats watching two players face to face, everybody in the same room. It just creates such an amazing event.
I mean, that's so true. And like from our perspective, what we really miss is meeting our players face to face.
Yeah.
If you're a game developer, that is the most fun thing that you'll ever do is meeting your players face to face. And that's something that's very much been lacking through COVID. And but we've had Darkness and his
Mhm.
fiance come visit us here in Iceland. Silly Wiz, which is another player, he was in Iceland. He came by the office and visited us last week, I believe. And it's been so much fun just when these players are in Iceland. Stop by, message me, tell me that you want to meet us, and come say hello, because that's not a burden on us. Like that is a present for us, because we love meeting people that are actually getting value out of our game. That's why we show up for work every day. So if you are in Iceland, let us know, come visit. Unless we start getting like hundreds of visit requests that we can't accommodate, but like we'll accommodate as much as we can, because we want to see you, we want to know you, we want to know who you are. We want to know what you love, what you don't love. And talking about that in person is always the kind of best medium. So and that's also why we want to kind of offer players the chance to come to the World Championship, is so we can meet them in person.
Well, there you go. Open invite to visit Ollie in Iceland. So, Ollie, anything you want to kind of wrap up with? Anything else you want to add before we put a bow on it?
Not really. I mean, I would just say like I'm really excited for kind of the next steps in the Cards journey. I think a lot of people can kind of agree that a lot of the parts in the game perform extremely well and are extremely entertaining. Now we're getting a chance to kind of bring that experience to a wider range of people than we have been able up until this point. So I'm just we'll definitely need the community's help in that, in terms of let's be positive towards newer players. Let's help them out. Let's share resources. Let's teach them how to be members of our community. And this is something that's always been the case, and I just really hope and expect it to stay that way. So yeah, to be honest, I'm just super excited. I can't even put it into words. What's going to happen next for Cards is just it's just such a huge question mark going into the kind of mobile release, and supporting different platforms, and changing our marketing approach, and all that stuff. It's just like just exciting. I show up to work being excited every day, and that's something that I feel really privileged for.
And I love sitting here talking to you about this because the CCG market, there's a ton of players in it, some big, some small. But the things you're talking about, it's not just, hey, we're going to take what's worked for other games and we're just going to do it. We're going to change things. We're going to try things. We're going to get the community involved. We're going to do different things and we're going to see what works for us and make this game unique. And I think that's a huge, huge aspect to where you've seen some success and you're going to continue to see that as time goes on.
You hit the nail on the head. And I mean, this is something that we are even more adamant about now than we were before. When you're a small team, and you're kind of uh, doing everything you can, it's very, very tempting to look at the big names and say that worked there.
Mhm.
Why don't we do something similar? Um, but it misses a lot of the nuance. And even though those systems might be functional, they might not be the best for your players.
Mhm.
So we're absolutely committed to not just copying everyone else, but continuously working towards what is best for our players. So yeah, thank you.
Well, I love it. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're a busy man talking about behind the scenes, all the world championship stuff going on. So I really appreciate you taking the time to chat and give the players a bit of an insight into what the rest of the year is going to look like, as well as next year. So thank you once again, Ollie. I appreciate having you on the War Room.
My pleasure.